Good morning and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the very first space of the Scholar Studio. And, I see so many of you guys' faces. I'm just so grateful for you guys being here. I know that it was a beautiful, 40 days of spaces that we've had. It was there in a lot of those spaces before with the fine art cult. But Force and I really wanted to change things up a little bit and focus more on this academic aspect of art. Because we really see the want here. We see a lot of people wanting to get better and learn about these movements so that as we're unfolding in the here and now, as artists on the blockchain, we have more of a scope of the possibilities here. And you get to look at the past and you get to study how it unfolded. We get to see the perspectives of people before us who had laid the pathwork. We also can continue laying the pathwork forward. And we can take some of those same feelings that they had and integrate them into our day-to-day lives to be more in control of what we're doing in industry right now as artists. And it's such an exciting thing, I think. So I really want to bring like a fresh energy to this because it's something that I haven't really seen done a whole lot ever in any kind of capacity beyond X, except for like behind a paywall. And Forrest and I share this passion for knowledge being able to be accessed, right? And so we think that this is something that we would love to step in and provide because if we provide it, that means that we're also simultaneously going to be students as well. And we're forever students, and we really take that on with every core being. And so today what we're going to do is we're really going to talk about who we are, because Forrest is my husband, and what we've done in our lives and what we plan to do. And we're going to get right into what our topic for this week is, which is the COVID. Everything that we learned about how it came to be. And then tomorrow we'll dig a little bit more into how it blossomed after it was decided to be the movie that we're studying. So I'm really excited. And so I wanted to say hey to Forrest and let him introduce us.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for showing and helping us transition into this new avenue through which that we're trying to express ourselves. We are trying to really cultivate that sense of growth. And what's going on is really just a continuation and a natural evolution from what we were doing with the Morning Fine Art cult spaces. And in no way, shape, or form are we distancing ourselves in anything but name. We still love the community. We still love every single artist that we interacted with. We still love showing up to the masterpiece spaces. And the masterpiece spaces have really been the place to go to have that vibe, to have that artist being able to go and do that kind of more traditional showcasing of their art, and they are very good hosts for it. And the thing that we enjoy is about pushing ourselves to the absolute limit. And a lot of you guys are like that. There's a lot of students of the craft already in the crowd. I think just about every single person. Byron's here, Chumwood's here, Tricky's here, Abra's here, Edda's here, Rabbit Flower, and Uncle Ron. All of these people are people who consistently add to the conversation about how to push themselves, about how to move forward and to learn. And they've shared so much with us that's helped us grow. And we love, and I love, collecting that information. So to really start us off, I want to introduce Schnazzy. She is my beautiful and talented wife. She has been an artist for all of her life. And I met her in high school in an art class that I wasn't supposed to be in. My friend was in that art class, and I was skipping my classes to go and be his class. And that is where I saw Schnazzy making her art pieces, and it stood out among the crowd. And I was like, wow, she's way better than anything I've made, way better than anything that I've seen anybody else make. And then over the years, we realized, oh, hey, she showed up to this party, and we interacted a lot, randomly throughout, until finally, so I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons player, big tabletop RPG player, have been for 15 years now. It's been a part of my life since I was very, very little, but I've only actively been playing it for about the last 15 years. And she showed up to a bunch of them and finally showed up after college, after she was out of college on break, and then we started hanging out in earnest, and that turned in and blossomed into a relationship. And so that's just the nitty gritty, quick and fast of how we met. But then from there is really where my experience of her art journey and her journey as an individual really showcased itself. And I got to watch her learn and grow as we worked together in the retail world, as we started from the bottom. And we had this hunger to just grow and be better and be as skillful as we possibly could. And over the years, it compounded. Where I'm an avid reader, and I loved being able to have these discussions with her. And that same type of discussion that she and I have is very much the same discussions we've been having in these same morning spaces. And that is why it's so refreshing, and why we wanted to, once I stepped up and was helping out a lot more in the fine art cult spaces, that was able to be showcased, and I was able to kind of put my energy into it and get other people to put theirs into it. And it added a little bit of a different energy. And as everybody is kind of growing outward, I think that this, like Mohika said yesterday, this is the natural evolution of what it is that she and I bring to the table. She started when COVID hit. We had already had our middle sons, two sons, and she finally was able to start staying home a little bit more. Bought her an iPad, because she was always a traditional medium artist. She was always doing acrylics and drawing and charcoal and graphite and all of that. And she was like, well, I've never sold out a piece of artwork like this. I've never sold out editions. And she needed that help, and we had this gust of wind. So I was like, all right, listen, if you're going to do this and you're going to push forward, I think I could write a book. And if you'll illustrate scenes from the book, then we can make this work. And I will work hard to put out a chapter every single week for free. I put it out on Discord. It was atrocious. It was disgusting. The formatting was awful. It was my first book, so naturally it wasn't really that well written. But I did it anyway. And we pushed it out for 17 out of 18 weeks. And it sold really well, and people really loved it. And there were maybe 3 or 4 people who read the book. But they enjoyed it, and we were pushing and pushing and pushing. We had another project come out called the Snazzy E-Girls, and this is something she wanted to have a 10K PFP. Now remember, she came from that early OpenSea 2021 era of everything was PFPs and all this other stuff, and she wanted to have that 10K PFP. And so we sat down, she did her 300 individualized assets. We found some random program that would run all of them together so we could see what they look like. We did 3 iterations of that, and then we sat on it for almost a year. Because we didn't know how to get that moving. We didn't know how to get everything put together. This was really, really early. Until finally she's doing a little bit more work, and one of the marketplaces that she was a part of, that she was working with, who were helping support her, was like, hey, do you have anything else? And that's how it came up. They helped us get that off the ground. We had everything ready to go. And it's one of those beautiful moments, one of those amazing synchronicities where it's right place, right time. Everything comes together. And everything did come together. And we had, and still have, an amazing and fantastic community of people there who support us and support Snazzy because they know who she is. They know that these things, we have a love for every single piece that we put out, every single thing that we work on together. And they supported us. They've supported us through this transition. We still have people like, wow, we love it. We love what you guys are doing. And she continued to do things on wax. She had all kinds of amazing and powerful and beautiful collaborations with some amazing artists on that blockchain. And then around that time is when she went into her corporate era. Now, I love my wife, but if I had to pick an era in which we struggled the most, it was the corporate era. And I see Mr. Scribbles Mojica in the crowd. Thank you for joining us. And he's told stories as well of his time in working in Web3 and how difficult that is. And it really is, when you go from being an artist to being somebody who has to work behind the screen, behind the scenes, in a more corporatized setting, it really does kill just a little bit of your soul if you're not too careful. You know, like if you don't know how to handle it. And so I watched this. I was allowed to quit my job and became Mr. Mom to our kids, and I got to step down, and she was bringing in the money. We were living in, I wouldn't say the hood, it was hood adjacent. We heard a lot of people get killed quite legitimately, I'm not exaggerating, outside of our home, and we were raising 3 young boys. So being hood adjacent, working from home, it was like, okay, we have to push to get out of here. We purchased our home in 2017-18, and it wasn't in a very good neighborhood. We were young, we did not know, but we loved our home, we loved our neighbors. Our neighbors were fantastic. They were amazing to us. We had a couple of unfortunate things. We did get broken into at one point in time, and a lot of my collection. I was a big video game collection guy, like old school retro. All of it was gone. None of it recovered. So we wanted to get out of there. And so she's working hard, bouncing from job to job, and creatively I could see her just getting drained. And eventually, at a certain point, she gets laid off from the Wax blockchain, and then it's right back on the hunt. We're right back, you know, trying to figure things out. And it is in that time that she started to find herself creatively again. And it was yet again another time in my life where she inspired me. So I'd already put out a book, and I put out another book in a genre that I had never written in. And while she's looking for work and she is doing oil painting for the first time, she is making some of the best art I have ever seen her make. And it inspired me yet again to do something, to push myself, to go further, to go harder, to not stop, to not give up. And we made some great shit. And we continued to push forward, and it kept us alive. That creativity really did keep us alive. And being able to push really gave us the ability to survive. So, all that being said, the corporate jobs keep coming for her. And I keep being Mr. Mom. And eventually, it gets so bad that I have to go back to work at that same place that I worked before. But of course, I can't go back into management. So when it does eventually happen, I have this moment where I can choose to either let it go and to just give up on trying to write books and trying to do this and trying to do what we are trying to do, or I can unleash the beast that we all have within us to push as hard as fucking possible and to not let it stop me. And I read just about 6 to 7 books a week because I listened and I trained myself to listen to books above 2x speed on Audible. I read everything I could get my hands on anything I could absolutely. I found out about the Internet Archives so that I could get free books. I used every single resource, and I learned and I learned and I learned and I learned and I learned. And I compressed years of learning and experience into one short year. And in that same time, Schnazzy was still making amazing art, was still pushing herself, and we had a moment, we had a realization at a certain point that if you listen to anybody who's ever been successful in their life at anything, anyone who's ever, air quotes, made it, they all have that tipping point, that Malcolm Gladwell tipping point moment, where they realize, if I just keep moving forward and I keep getting a little bit better every day, success is inevitable. It is an eventuality that we will be successful, all of us, if we continue to move forward and to push ourselves. And that is part of the reason why we are here today. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to put too much into one episode. That is the story. That is part of it. That is how we got there. That is her story and my story a little bit intertwined. And that is the introduction that I wanted to give. That's the backstory. This is who you're talking to. This is who is talking to you. This is the background. And we're pushing, and we will not stop pushing. No matter, we could lose everything again, and it would only make me that much bolder. So when we talk about improvement, and when we talk about pushing, and when we talk about inspiration and dedication and all of this, this is where it's coming from. As transparent as I can be. And this is who we are. This is unbridled, the version of who I am, at the very least. And so when we move, as we move forward, talking about these things in the Scholar Studio, I really appreciate and pray that you guys will continue to add to the conversation, because a little bit of your flames that you had added over the 40 episodes of the Fine Art Cult Space has grown in me, and I will continue to carry it on. And that sounds really grandiose, and a lot of people would guffaw at it and laugh at it, but they can go fuck themselves, because now, I'm going to say exactly what I want to say, and I encourage you guys to do the same. It's all about growth. It's all about growth and unfoldment and learning and pushing forward. And that is the grand reintroduction that I wanted. So I'm going to throw the mic over to Schnazzy, and I'm going to let her fill in the gaps.
Thank you, honey. This is raw, you guys. I'm wiping away tears, and I'm glad that you had a little bit of comic relief there at the end so I could follow up. But that he's not wrong. Our entire road to success, and I think that's everybody's road to success, because we're not there. Well, I don't think that we've gotten to that destination yet, but we're damn on our way. And it's paved with failure, you guys. And the only way you can continue moving forward on that path to success is if you pick yourself up, keep pushing forward. That's your plan B, is to just keep going and getting up and feeling that resolve within yourself to keep pushing further. And that's why we are so dedicated to talking and sharing our love and passion for growth and exploring it from all angles and trying to get as many different perspectives we can on what growth is and what it looks like to you guys, and trying to get as many tools as possible, because we want it so badly. We want to provide this opportunity for our family to have something that we didn't have. We want to be able to teach people. We want to be able to inspire people. We want people to have this love and lust for life that pushes them beyond what anybody ever expected them to be. And we want to share that. You know, it doesn't cost anything for your flame to ignite someone else. And we believe that with everything inside of us, and it's a cause worth fighting for. And so that's why when we show up to spaces like this is how we're doing it. This is how we want to show up, because I feel it in my gut that this is the right direction. This is the right move. And even if it fails for whatever reason in the forward, I think it's absolutely integral to where we're headed, because we're not going to give up. We're going to keep making art. We've already decided. I mean, we've taken leaps of faith, and I think that's the best way to put it into words. Is it's been one leap of faith after the next, and we have kids, and a lot of people have not appreciated the risks that we're taking, and I see it from their perspective. But man, I'd rather set the example for my children on what it is to try to make your dreams a reality than for them to see that's to settle for less. You know, I want them to have this passion inside of them to make those things happen for them too. And I want to be able to help them along the way and encourage them in the way that Force and I had to learn how to do for each other, because we didn't have that. And that's where we're coming from. So whenever we're having the Scholar Studio, we are putting this learning cap on, and we are actively trying to get as much from everything that we're taking in, whether that's whenever you guys come up to speak and share something, or give us a thread to go down, like, hey, study Fauvism. And I've never heard of Fauvism, and I'm really excited to talk about that, because it's really interesting how the parallels cross. But when we get that little thread of exploration and get to see what's on the other side of something we've never uncovered before, it feeds us. It feeds us. It feeds my soul. It makes me know that there's more to learn, there's more to do, there's more to explore inside of me. Like if I'm looking at Fauvism, I'm going to see art that I've been delving into for years and years in a completely different light, and I'll get to see what that looks like for me whenever I do that. And I hope that you all feel the same way. And if you don't, that's okay. But I'm glad that you're in here and you feel like we can express ourselves more authentically. And if we say something that, I love you, Mohika, and you're in here. But if we say something that, somebody else doesn't agree with, we don't want it to fall on Mohika ever. And because, our opinions are our own, and we don't want that to be that way. We want to be responsible for the things that we say. And so that's one of the bigger driving factors, especially as we met a lot of resistance last week, focusing on more academic topics. So we're really grateful that everyone was able to show up. And it's been a heavy conversation at the beginning for you guys to get to know more about who we are and where we came from that put us here on this path and made us want to do these things. But I think it's incredibly important to let you guys know where we're coming from, and why we're doing what we're doing, because this is something that we're so passionate about. Like this is something we feel the need and the call and the drive to show up for. And for you guys to understand that, I feel like we're going to be able to have better conversations and be connected in a different way. And I want to know you guys' story in the same way. And it felt like such a blessing for you guys to be able to share the pieces of your stories that you have. And I'm excited to see how, through this academic lens, we can take our life experiences and learn from them together a little bit more intentionally. And I'm really grateful for that. And, I know we talked a lot about us, but the theme for this week that I really want to study and focus on is actually Fauvism. And it's weird because it came in a place in around 1905. It came from a place where everybody was trying to break away from the constraints that they were feeling with art. Art was classic at the time. We had a little bit of impressionism before Fauvism really came to be, but it was really focused on trying to get real life replicated in art because they weren't taking pictures back then. It was what people wanted to document their experiences. They wanted paintings of their houses, paintings of their loved ones, cherish and pass on their legacy through. And so that was a huge focus for artists up until this point. And we started to see in the mid 1800s a little bit of expression through Impressionism. And we got beautiful artworks such as Van Gogh was post-Impressionism actually. And all of the artists that created Fauvism were inspired deeply in their childhood by seeing these Impressionist artworks and it being a little bit different from the realism that they were seeing beforehand. It started challenging their idea of what art was, and they wanted to pave the way forward for it. And I actually have pinned some. I'll pin them up to the top now. We're gonna call up here. What was it? Of course, wasn't the chalkboard or the whiteboard? Which one was it?
Chalkboard, whiteboard, canvas. That was Mr. Scribble's idea, so I'm not going to steal that one. But chalkboard, I think, is a good one for the Scholar Studio. We could also do all kinds of things, but we can do the chalkboard. If somebody slips up and calls it the Jumbotron, nobody's going to get crucified for it. But the thing that stands out to me, and the thing that I got from talking about Fauvism, from just reading up on it, and this is a stage. These are stages that we are going to go through with you guys. So some of you, like Abro down there, Abro is the one who kind of showcased these things to us. So for him, this is retreading old ground, and he might even be like, oh, that's not right. It's actually this. And we are open to that correction. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me something that's objectively true. So when we're going through these things and we're learning this together, so we're presenting this to you because we went out there, we've learned it, we're going to throw it out there to you, and the challenge then becomes, if you have the time, and if you then have the energy and the want, which we want to cultivate in the space. We want to cultivate you to want to do your homework. And all that homework is, when we're talking about Fauvism and all of these things, is the homework that we are assigning to you that you do not have to do, but you absolutely should, is to go out there, do a little bit of study on your own, and figure out what these things mean, and then figure out what they mean to you. Because those two things are going to be different. The way that Fauvism is represented by Henri Matisse is different than the way you're going to do it. And the way that Abro does it is going to be different than the way that Schnazzy does it, or Mr. Scribbles, or anybody else out there, comparatively. It's going to be different. But let's learn what others think, and then let's put our lens over it, and let's share it. And let's share this art. Let's talk about it, because learning about Cubism last week, I couldn't have cared. Could not have cared about Cubism, did not understand it, did not have the smallest inkling of comprehension. But seeing everybody else's passion about it and seeing people talk about it was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I actually really fucking like this. Like, oh, I broke through that resistance. And that feeling of resistance, we've talked a lot in the other 40 spaces about catharsis and how cathartic art is. Learning is cathartic for me. And when I started to begin to comprehend Cubism, and I could showcase a little bit of that, just a little tiniest inkling of comprehension, it changed who I was in a rude way. And we all have this in everything that we do. Some people have it, they acknowledge it, and they have to move on with their lives. I revel in it. I will take that little grain of sand and I will polish that bitch into a fucking pearl of wisdom that I want to give to everybody. That I want to share with fucking everybody, whether they want it to or not sometimes. But luckily we have a space now where we can do that. And I hope that you guys will continue to show up. I hope you guys will continue to add your grains of sand to this greater pearl of wisdom that we're building up in this space. So to bring it all back to Fauvism and what I got from it was that and I really can't wait to go and really talk a lot about Impressionism, because that's actually been something that has been, again, another thing that I just didn't comprehend, didn't understand. It's never something that I came across. And Fauvism And Impressionism, in my mind, and in my discussions with Schnazzy, are very, very tied, but very, very different. And in the ways in which they are different that I have come across and that I have noticed has been the color, the representation of color is fundamentally different in Fauvism. It's a lot brighter. It's a lot more bombastic is the word I would use. And it never represents the color that it would be in reality. And it really does, and again, so as I'm learning about Fauvism, I'm also having to learn about Impressionism and then also Expressionism, because the color aspect of what Fauvism has, they utilize those bright color palettes and the non-representation of reality and color from what I've learned in a very expressionist way. They're showcasing their emotions of what the subject matter is through the color in which they're using, and the fact that it defies the norm for how it would normally be interpreted is showcasing their contrasting than they would be in other art forms, and it causes this very vibrant and poppy style that has a different overall vibe. So now that I've gotten my little bit out there, Schnazzy, what did you pick up?
I like to kind of understand its place in history, right? And whenever I was looking at this, I was specifically looking at Matisse's background, and he had a lot of those influences of Impressionism that we were talking about, and post-Impressionism. And his family was a long line of weavers. They made a lot of different furnitures and baskets. And so the way that he saw his art, whenever he was practicing his art, was more in the brushstroke style of like how you would see the print of a weave on a paper, right? It's like smaller brushstrokes, more of it. And what I thought was interesting is that in the documentation of his work, he was really trying to decouple himself from what art was traditionally and figure out what it looked like for him. And what was interesting about the time that he was expressing himself in this way, and other artists were also expressing themselves this way, it actually was kind of like a movement that was happening without being called something until after they had already been in a gallery. And that's what happened. I'll tell you about that story in just a second. But it was all of these people who were inspired by what Impressionism was challenging, and they were exploring it for themselves. And they were exploring things on the more emotional side of things to kind of counterbalance what the reality of things, right? And so I thought that was really interesting. So they were adults at the time that this was taking place, and economically, there was a larger middle class in this time period than there was beforehand. People were able, especially in Paris, they were actually able to see these artists go out in the streets and paint something from their life, but try to challenge the way that they would feel about what they were seeing, and they would use these different colors. And they were doing this a lot all over Paris because everybody was trying to feel that counterbalance to the realism they were expressing. So people would see these out on the streets, and they started having the money to offer these artists right there to buy their artwork. And so that became kind of this almost this hot thing to do. These artists were like, oh my gosh, if you actually want to buy this, like what? The artists can't make money unless you're in galleries and stuff. So they started mass producing artworks as fast as possible. They'd go and they'd spend all day next to the pond, and have done 20 different pond pieces, right? And sell them right there. And that was gaining momentum, and that was a way that they were starting to make money. And this was really inspiring them to be more fast and loose and expressive, and kind of gain notoriety this way, because this new middle class was really appreciative of the art, and it was kind of transforming the way that they thought of art as well, when they were actually able to interact with the artists like we're doing here in these spaces. And this was their version of that. And so I thought it was really interesting to read about just like what kind of led to this moment. So what this gallery did in Paris is they were seeing how more people were able to get these art pieces. And so they reached out to some of these artists and were like, hey, come together, let's have a showcase of your stuff. But this gallery, I mean, they had, beautiful statues, and like gorgeous paintings, and a lot of fabric. There was a lot of Fabergé items at this time and relics. And so they were displaying all these things, and they had pushed them out, and they had opened up this one room, and they couldn't move the statue because it was too heavy, and it was by Donatello. And it was in the center of this room, and in the walls they put all of these beautifully vibrant artworks that they had seen from the artists on the streets they wanted to showcase. And there was a critic that showed up to the first day of the gallery showcasing, and he wrote a piece for the papers, and he said it was Donatello amongst a sea of wild beasts, and that's how he described it. And what wild beasts translates to is actually Fauvism. So that's how we got the name for the movement, and that stuck for centuries, you know. And so I thought that was really interesting. To see the history behind it. And actually, both of these pieces I pinned above were showcased in that. So you kind of see that it's not necessarily describing a style overall, but more of the time in which artists were exploring like art and color emotionally. And so it has a more loose term and definition, because whenever we look at what Fauvism is, it actually describes a period of time where artists were expressing themselves in a certain way. And so I think that was really interesting, and I wanted to know your thoughts, for us, if I left anything out, because I know that you had done your own research as well. But I thought this was really, really interesting. And, you know, the piece evolved by Matisse that I was talking about. That's the man who had his background with the Weavers. This is actually a painting of his wife. And it's so funny because he named this woman with a hat, and whenever, of course, and I were doing our research, we made a lot of jokes about it. I was like, if you ever made an art piece and just called me a woman in a hat, I'd be so offended. Because I'm your wife. And I think that deserves a little bit more credence. But this is his wife, and I thought it was really interesting how he portrayed her. Because she looks very, like, stern in this. And I don't know. It was, I'd love to hear some of the people's thoughts. If you guys want to come up, I know AWS was having its issues. So I don't know how well this would go, but I really thought it was more beautiful to see it with the context, and it made a lot of the art make more sense to me.
It definitely made it make more sense to me. I think the big thing that I would want to add that I picked up on was that a lot of the subject matter was landscapes, daily life, and I think that ties in a lot too, because from my study of Impressionism is that they were also kind of doing the same things. They were all kind of breaking free from the technical confines of what used to be the fundamental basis of whether or not you were going to be seen as an artist. And that's the thing that I think that's the part of the greater conversation when we talk about these movements. Is it's more about, is this thing that I'm doing considered and accepted to be art? And so when we got to Cubism last week, you know, the fundamental conversation we were having was that Cubism was able to essentially break free from those molds. It was the one of the straws that actually broke the camel's back. And when I'm learning about the backward momentum a little bit of Impressionism and Fauvism and Cubism, I'm starting to see a little bit more of how those chains were broken. And I think that learning how those chains were broken and how that mentality and that acceptance of different forms of art that weren't the traditional aspect is super important and super relevant for everybody in this room and those who are not in this room about where we are going forward, because I very much believe in the saying, if you do not study and know history, you are doomed to repeat it. And the other side of that, the inversion that Schnazzy and I talk about a lot whenever we're talking about, we did Dante's Inferno in my book club, shameless plug there. And it was really fun. And one of the ways that we talked about the punishments was, okay, let's gauge this punishment by inverting it. If we did the opposite, if somebody did the opposite, would the opposite of the punishment be befitting, be a fitting reward? And so when we're talking about breaking free from the chains and learning from history. If you do not learn history, you are doomed to repeat it. If you do learn your history, you are able to overcome it. You are able to make those better decisions in those moments and pick up on those patterns. And so when we're talking about these movements and we're talking about learning and we're talking about skills, that's the lens through which I am looking at this as well. Because we are currently in the midst of another great art movement that some people in this room, hopefully most of the people in this room, are going to be the ones who define it. And I know that's a lofty goal. I know that's a lofty statement. But here's the thing. Every single one of those art movements, like Fauvism, happened when artists came together and they decided we don't give a flying fuck about what the establishment thinks is art. We're going to get a room and we're going to throw our fucking canvases up there and we're going to throw the doors open and people are going to see it. People are going to see it and they're going to decide for themselves. And that is exactly what my goal for this is. Come in here, learn about it, be that.
They're not, so, it's amazing about that. I didn't know that, only because of you guys. And we know Matisse is a big time legend, masterpieces. And you guys are pretty new masterpieces.
Inevitable. Oh man, I relate to that so much, and I'm not gonna go all into my story now because I have a very long story of trials and tribulations and similarity. It's not only art. I'm also an artist, but also a lot more than that. It's actually all on my website. If anyone's interested, consumerbreak.com/story. I spent a long time trying to build an app long before.
Vive la forme. Uh, yes, I'm definitely gonna try. Good morning, wild beasts. That's kind of the favism. Oh no, no. Oh no. Okay, well, yeah, that sucks. Ah, that's all right. We'll let it be for the day. How can I still hear that? Now it took all them away. Now I can't hear them. This is wonderful. Well, I tried. Yikes. Okay, well, all right. All right, guys. Well, Now it is not letting me re-enter the space at all. So we will shut things down here. I do have to be ready in about an hour and a half to cast out the Leaf Token news, and we will have a round table for Leaf Token on Wax here in about an hour and a half. So I'm gonna see what my technical difficulties are between here and then, and I will be live again then. See you all in a few.